We just got new news on when all this quarterback madness might finally end, and we talk about that next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome
hair,
back
baby,
to
no.
the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube so you don't miss a Chicago Bears update. And always, rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Go out to Apple Podcasts and rate 5 stars, and you will be in the running for a Darnell Wright jersey, which we'll give away when we reach the magic number of 58 5-star reviews. Lots of news, rumors, whatever you want to call it. It's really your cup of tea today. We're going to be breaking down all the news that was happening today around the NFL, kind of around the Chicago Bears. So let's get started first. Tomorrow is going to be the franchise tag day, and most likely we're going to see the Bears franchise tag Jalen Johnson unless they can get some sort of deal done. My personal take, I think that they're just going to franchise tag him since the deadline is tomorrow. And it did seem like things were still up in the air, so look for that. Otherwise, I think that they're going to hopefully get a 4-year deal done, because that really does seem to be what Ryan Poles goes after with like Cole Kmet, with Edmonds. It's really that 4-year deal, which is what I think he's going to go after. But speaking of franchise tags, Mike Evans got franchise tagged, and also, so Mike Evans, wide receiver, no longer on the market for the Bears, but then Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle out of Miami, is reportedly not going to be franchise tagged. So here you have a top defensive tackle that is going to be out there on the open market. So let me know down below. Are you interested in Christian Wilkins? He should be going for around this $22 to $25 million a year is what some experts are predicting. To me, I love the idea of the Bears getting a defensive tackle and someone like this who's only 28 years old, that potentially if you do 4 years, 22, 4 years, 25, it's still a good chunk of change, but he's a pretty darn good defensive tackle that will solidify this defensive tackle group with 2 young developmental studs potentially, and then also Billings and Wilkins. That will be a good defensive tackle room in my opinion. But let's go over to the new center. What? New center? We didn't sign anybody, but Brad Biggs reported, there was like 10 different reports that Brad Biggs talked about today, and one of those was the possibility of the Chicago Bears landing Mitch Morse, the center from the Bills. And a little bit on this. So first off, let me know what you think about Mitch Morse down below. He is going to be 32 this season, so he's an older center. But what Brad Biggs had to say about that, Morse turns 32 in April, and he entered the league as a second-round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2015. Poles knows him well, and he might be an ideal candidate to play traffic cop on the offensive line and work with a rookie quarterback. And he said, I don't know if Mitch comes free, but basically, and I'll kind of paraphrase here a little bit, but the whole reason why he thinks Mitch Morse would become available is because the Bills are trying to make they need to cut, I think, around $40 million of cap space, and they would save close to, I think it was $10 million if they got rid of Mitch Morse. So he is someone to definitely be on the lookout for, and we've seen a lot of veteran centers become available. This could be a good option, and Mitch Morse, to me, a solid center, and yet again, like what Brad Biggs was talking about, a veteran center that could be the person that could help whoever is going to be at that quarterback position. And if you can get him, if he's got 2 years left in him, that's good to me, right? You can draft a center, develop someone behind Mitch Morse. I like the idea of getting a veteran center that can play, can play well. So Mitch Morse, to me, I like it if it's for the right price and if he can guarantee I'll play 2 years. Because to me, I don't want just a one and done center. I think 2 years would be pretty darn nice if you could land that. But let's go to a little bit more news, because this was also from Brad Biggs. Like I said, he had a lot of different reports today, and that's on Darnell Mooney reportedly getting an offer last offseason, and I know that we heard some rumblings of this. I think I even said on the show that there was a lot of good rumors that were saying that a deal was in fact getting done. And turns out Brad Biggs reported on this and said, supposedly, what he said, there's a cautionary tale here for Mooney as he turned down an extension offer from the Bears before last season started. As I understand it, Mooney had a 3-year deal worth more than $10 million annually on the table. Now, obviously, it's not what he wanted. He bet on himself, and this is what happened. And let me know down below, are you happy that Darnell did not sign this, or are you disappointed? I'm a Darnell Mooney fan. I've said this all the time, but still, now it's unfortunate that he's not going to be with the team, but it would have been nice to at least get him. Selfishly, I do enjoy him, and I do think that he's a good wide receiver, but I'm glad that ultimately it didn't happen because right now it seems he wants to move on from the Bears. A lot of people are saying Chiefs. I've said Chiefs forever. I think he's going to be a Kansas City Chief, and I wish him the best of luck because I hope that he does what he did 2 years ago in Chicago. But let's talk about the beef. Let's talk about the main stuff that you came here to watch, the quarterback position. What is going on at the quarterback position? And I'm just going to start with Caleb Williams. I said this yesterday on the show that I'm operating under the idea that Caleb Williams is going to be our quarterback of the future. And today on Monday Morning Quarterback with Albert Breer, he just kind of solidified that even more. And there was even more reports that came out that just further cemented Caleb Williams as who the Bears are going to go with. And if you disagree with this, I don't know what to tell you. So Brad Biggs said, in 24 years of covering the team, I've never felt as if I knew who the Bears were going to land in the draft like this one. Not in the first week of March. And he furthered this up by saying, they do need to check the medicals. That is going to be the big piece. And that is one of the things that with the time frame, which we'll talk about later, the Bears do want those medicals because that's like buying a car that you didn't see or you don't know before checking the Carfax, right? Before checking what is under the hood with this car or without even seeing like photographs. You want to make sure that this car has a good engine. You want to hear it start up. And Caleb Williams, you just want to make sure that he's okay. Now, I get why he didn't want to do the medicals, but this just makes things a little bit crappy because the Bears could have had something done or have a better idea if Caleb would have just done those medicals. Now, everyone would have gotten those, but still, you would have had a quicker idea of, okay, is he good? Which we'll talk more about what happened behind the scenes a little bit later on. So, also a scout via Josh Chirac out of NBC Sports Chicago said, guys like Caleb Williams don't come around often. They'd be foolish to pass on him. I don't know if he's generational, but he's definitely the best quarterback prospect to come out since Luck. Also, last from Albert Breer, Caleb Williams is going to be a Bear, so we can take him off the table. Just very to the point. Like, this is what's going to happen. Now, if it doesn't, Brian Poles has pulled off the king of all smokescreens, in my opinion. And that's where it's the theory of whatever's the simplest answer is probably correct. Whatever it leans towards, it's probably this. But also, this is from Albert Breer. I'll try and read all of this. That was just more about, I was going to say Justin Fields, more about Caleb Williams and just the Chicago Bears process with him and why Albert Breer seems so confident about this. What he wrote was, what he was kind of talking about what Ryan Poles did. And this is what he said. In dispatching his scouts to All-Star games, Pole directed evaluators to ask about the 2022 Heisman winner. When they interviewed Oklahoma Sooners or USC players or others who crossed paths with Williams, the returns there were good. Sometimes you can get awkward pauses if players are lukewarm on teammates they're asked about. It was the opposite in this case. The mention of Williams' name brought about a lot of smiles. In interviewing their then USC assistant Cliff Kingsbury for their offensive coordinator job in Los Angeles in January, the Bears did a ton of fact-finding. Kingsbury described a player beloved by his coaches and teammates, and also gave the Bears very real insight into Williams' father and how involved he was. The quarterback's dad, Kingsbury told them, was sharp and someone that Williams learned a lot business-wise. But the father left the football part to his kid. Kingsbury explained to Chicago he saw the dad maybe once last year at USC's practice facilities. So take with that what you will. But to me, that's just, it's the debunking of all the narratives around Caleb Williams. And I know there's people out there that say, man, Williams' agent must really be getting the marketing out there. Listen, if Caleb Williams is capable of this level of conspiracy, this complex level of conspiracy, I want him running a complex offense in the NFL because this is just darn impressive. That's just my take on it. But all these great things about him, but the last little bit that really kind of points to Caleb Williams, they said what they saw from Williams in that setting was an easy confidence, talking about the interviews with him, and a player who was not concerned much with what other people thought of him. That last part is key because the Bears have tried to drill down on making sure the person they pick first can handle the pressure and the spotlight of the Chicago market. Williams checked that box. The next one came Friday night when Bears brass got a chance to sit down and meet with the quarterback's team as a precursor to the 30 visit. So overall, like I'm saying, it looks like this is a done deal. And it really does seem like it's just going to be Caleb Williams. So when will we be able to, when's the timeline? When will we know more about this? And let's see. So what was reported via Albert Breer was the Bears actually wanted him to be with the Bears tomorrow on Tuesday. So he said, rather than shuttling the quarterback to and from California again, in the midst of preparations for his March 20th pro day, the Bears will host Williams in Chicago shortly after that instead. But I didn't grab the actual quote, but basically they wanted him to come in on Tuesday, but Williams said that he just wanted to kind of prep for or ultimately they decided not to. So basically we have to wait till after the pro day. But when I'm hearing more about what is going on, like Brad Biggs was talking about this on 670 The Score, it does seem like they will most likely move on from Justin Fields even before they have the overall the injury report, if you will, on Caleb Williams. It just seems like they want to move on and just get a new quarterback, whether it is Drake May, whether it is a Caleb Williams. They just want to figure out what to do at the quarterback position. And essentially, it seems like they just want to move on and try and get their guy. Now, what do you think below? Let me know what you think about that. But the last little bit about the schedule. So what Albert Breer wrote, for now, though, while Poles has positioned the Bears to trade Fields in the coming day, he's also open to waiting a bit if it takes time for the QB market. With Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield as headliners to develop, the key is the team has flexibility. Chicago will be realistic in finding the right return for the 11th pick in the 2021 draft. It's probably not getting a first rounder, but it hasn't been working off any assumption that it will be. So with this, what you can kind of see with it is kind of more of the same, where it's going to be about where do the other quarterbacks go, and ultimately that will determine where Justin ends up landing. And you hear this also from Albert Breer, that it does seem like a foregone conclusion that the Bears would move on from Justin Fields even before those injuries do come out. So what is the latest on the quarterback positions? Glad you asked. So right now we're playing the waiting game. I think ultimately with this schedule, we're waiting to see what happens with the quarterbacks in free agency. And then after that, I feel we will have a better understanding of, or then we can see a trade depending on where this quarterback carousel ends up landing. So a couple little dominoes. Mike Evans just got franchise tagged, which to me goes, okay, well, now are they going to add Baker as we got the number one guy figured out. Now let's try and get Baker, bring back the quarterback for next season. The next person, Russell Wilson, just got released today. by the Denver Broncos. So another quarterback has entered the market that a lot of people say maybe the Raiders or maybe the Steelers might want to bring in Russell Wilson. And then next, Kirk Cousins also has a week to resign. One thing that I would love is if Kirk could just get franchise tagged right now by Minnesota. This would make things so much easier. But there are rumors, though, that Kirk Cousins has interest in moving down to Atlanta. And what Pro Football Talk said about Kirk Cousins, they say that they have some inside sources that are saying that they're looking at moving down to Atlanta. And one of the reasons is the Falcons have always been the top alternative to the Vikings for Cousins, who becomes an unrestricted free agent next Wednesday, and for good reason. His wife, Julie, grew up in nearby Alpharetta, Georgia. Her parents still live there. So just something to mull over. The Falcons obviously are one of the Bears' top landing spots for Justin Fields, and a lot of people said, too, that they're really looking at Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and then Justin is kind of that, okay, if everyone else is gone, then we'll go with Justin. But lots of stuff, but I think ultimately we need to wait. We need to wait a week. We need to wait a week and a half until free agency actually starts, and then we can start to hopefully end all this absolute craziness. So tomorrow, though, I will plan on doing a mock off season, one that I actually built myself, that this is then my mock off season, rather than just playing through different scenarios. Do what I would truly do, unless there is more news for the Chicago Bears. But you already know what to do. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Rate the show 5 stars everywhere you get your podcast. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she